Hi class, this is Professor Pronte coming to you with a quick little video here on tax incidence. I've got a practice problem from the end of chapter 6 for you guys to work. I'm going to go ahead and show you my analysis here on the board, but it'll be really useful if you give this a try on your own first, right? So go ahead, try the problem, hit pause, and then start me up again, and then you can make sure that you're doing the problem in the same way that I am. Or you can see if you have any questions. All right, so the problem then that I'm going to look at is on page 129 of our textbook, question number 4. Okay, so the problem here reads that we're going to suppose that the federal government requires beer drinkers to pay a $2 tax on each case of beer, and then from that, we're going to first take on scenario A. We'll draw a supply and demand diagram for the market for beer without the tax. We're going to show the price paid by beer buyers, compare that with the price received by beer sellers, and then talk about the quantity. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done a little bit of the legwork here to start with, but what I've got here on the board, just to go real quickly, I've got the market for our given product, which we're saying is beer. Vertically, we're measuring the price of the good, and then horizontally, we're going to measure the quantity of the goods. You should start every problem with that same structure. I've drawn in a downward sloping demand curve representing the behavior of buyers, and then an upward sloping supply curve to represent the behavior of all of our beer sellers. Okay, so before this tax is put into place, we want to know what's going to be the price paid. Okay, well, the equilibrium price that we learned about from our earlier chapter on supply and demand is the one that we want. Right? This one price right here, where the supply curve and demand curves intersect, is going to be the price that we want. Because any other price would result in either shortage or surplus, we get pushed to that price. You guys know that already. Okay. So here's going to be the price paid by buyers of beer in the absence of a tax. You could call this P1, but I'm going to put a number on it here. I'm just going to make up a number, and there's no significance to that. That's just to make the problem a little bit easier to understand. You might call it P1. I'm going to say that beer costs $10 for a given 6-pack of beer. And then down here, we're going to have this market quantity demanded. Right underneath that same intersection. Maybe this is, I don't know, 5,500 6-packs of beer. Again, you can call it Q1, or you can put a little number on it so that's easier to understand. All right, now we're ready to answer the question, which is, what's the price that's going to be paid by buyers of beer? What's the price received by sellers of beer before any type of a tax is put into place? The key thing is that without any tax, those two numbers are going to be one and the same. Right? The amount that you pay to get some beer is the exact same amount that some firm is going to receive to sell you that beer. So buyers pay $10, sellers receive $10. They're one and the same. You've got a quantity here of 5,500. All right, so part A is the easier part. On to part B, we're going to be asked now to incorporate a $2 per pack tax imposed on beer. The way I would model this is through the supply curve, okay? So now that $2 per pack tax is going to shift up this supply curve by precisely that amount. So I'm going to call that S tax, right? Where the vertical distance between these two supply curves should be $2. And that's true regardless of where you look at the graph. Down here, this vertical distance is $2. Right here, the vertical distance is $2. Anywhere, the vertical distance is the amount of the tax, which should be $2. So let's put that $2 tax right in there. Okay, that's supposed to be that vertical distance right there. Maybe I should draw a little bit better bracket. They're supposed to be lined up exactly. All right. So once this tax is imposed, we're going to move away from $10 and $5,500 to a new situation. The new equilibrium is going to be located here. And a lot of people have the instinct to think that this new price should correspond with, in fact, $12, right? If you take the beginning price before, add the $2 tax, it's going to push you up to $12. But in fact, that's not the case. Instead, here you have a situation, and this is true for most cases, where the burden of that tax gets shared. Buyers are going to end up paying part of that $2 tax. sellers end up paying part of that $2 tax. The easiest way to see this is to look analytically here at our graph and notice the spot that's going to be $2 above this height of 10. That would be up here. But that's not our new price. Our new price is, in fact, over here. So the new price that buyers are going to pay is going to be some number that corresponds right there. We don't know precisely what it is for this problem, but it's going to be some amount less than $12. I'll call it $11.50. If that's the case, it means that the spot directly below this on our initial supply curve should likewise be $2 lower than that price. So this is $11.50. This price over here must correspond with the price of $9.50. Finally, we want to recognize that this higher price of beer induces people to buy less of it. Of course, that's a law of demand, so maybe it's 4,000. Who knows? Some quantity lower than what we started with. Okay. Now our graph is all set. We can answer the questions that are being put to us. Once the tax is put into place, first thing we want to know is what's the price that buyers are going to pay. Well, we can see that right up there. The price buyers are going to pay is $11.50. So that's what a buyer hands over to the clerk when they buy a 6-pack of beer. Of course, the business doesn't get to keep all $11.50, right? Some of that $11.50 is owed to the government in the form of that $2 tax, right? So in that way, then the firm will take that $11.50, hand over $2 to our government, and they're left with $9.50 that business then gets to keep. So the effective price that the seller is receiving is in fact pushed down lower after this tax is put into place. Buyers pay $11.50, sellers are now going to receive only $9.50. Right? So again, the key principle to take from the problem here is that with per unit tax like this, it's quite common that the incidence or the burden of the tax is going to be shared by buyers and sellers. All right. I hope you got to the same analysis as me. If you didn't, feel free to send an email